Welcome back to Starla Play Football with myself, Theo. As always, thank you very much for joining me. Now, before we get into today's video, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Please make sure you like this video and also make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below. Now, we are talking the champions of England, four-time champions, back-to-back consecutive seasons in a row. Can they do it for the fifth time? This is Manchester City that we're talking about. Now, obviously, a team that has dominated under Pep Guardiola in English football, a team that will punish you at any given moment. They don't have to play their best football, but yet still they can still walk away with the Premier League at the end of the season. Now, obviously, I do feel there's slight changes with Man City. We're used to seeing them bring in one or two key players. Obviously, they brought in Jeremy Doku throughout the last couple of seasons with Jack Grealish, and obviously there's competition there from Phil Foden. And Silvino is the only player so far that has come through the doors at the Etihad this season. A player that they're obviously familiar with from his previous time at the club, but they brought him back in, had a very good successful time in Girona for the 23-24 season by being able to take on the most one-on-ones as any player. I think only Kudus was the only other player that would be in the competition with him. So Man City have tried to trim down the squad. Now, there is obviously talk about the hearing implications of the 115 charges that hang over Man City's head. Will they be a massive points deduction, a possible relegation from the Premier League? That could be one of the reasons why Manchester City are not spending as much money as they possibly could do in this transfer window. They have obviously, as I said, let go of some of the more inexperienced players that potentially weren't going to get a first team space in the team. So Sergio Gomez, Liam Delap, Lewis Farini, Mika Hamilton have all gone for substantial amounts of money. Tyler Harwood-Bellis, £20 million as well. Tommy Doyle, 4.3 million. So there has been some outgoings for Manchester City ahead of this season. I mean, look, with Man City, they're a team that will just destroy you if they get a chance. They will destroy you. They don't have to play the most attractive, sexy football. They can break teams down. Pep Guardiola, as we know, tactically will keep hold of the ball, pass that ball around as much as he wants his team to do so. And normally the end of those balls, the final pass is Erling Haaland, who, as we know, scores 27 goals in a season across all competitions. A player that is deadly in front of goal, aerial ability, just a lightning player, machine of a player. Did miss some football last season, obviously due to an injury alongside Kevin De Bruyne. But I think both of those will be massive, massive players for Man City this season. And of course, they've now got a winner from the following the Euros of Rodri, who we know is probably arguably the best player in that position in the world right now. He will be another influential player for me going forward. I do look at the squad though for Man City, and they do look very light in certain areas. And maybe this is just how Pep Guardiola wants his team. Obviously, he uses his youth players as he can. We now know, obviously, Oscar Bob will miss a massive chunk of the season, 3 or 4 months out with the broken leg that he's received. But you look at the defence, only Akanji, Ake, Stones and Diaz are their natural recognised centre-backs. They've got Gravadio, who cannot obviously play left-back and play in that central role. Cancelo, who we know likes to get forward as well. And on the right side, we've got Carl Walker and Rico Lewis. We know that now Calvin Phillips will be going to Ipswich. So that leaves Rodri, Kovacic and Nunes in those sort of, DM roles, with Kevin De Bruyne in the midfield, Doku and Grealish on the left, with Foden, who can also play there. But Foden predominantly will be playing on the right with Bernardo Silva. And then obviously Alvarez is also gone. So it doesn't really give much cover for Man City. If they pick up an injury, if Haaland picks up an injury, they've had Alvarez who can fill in there. They haven't got that this season now. I think if De Bruyne can't have a season like he did before, they haven't really got much cover in those positions as well. And also similarly, Edison could still go. There's talks of him maybe going to a Saudi club. That would leave Ortega and Carson as the two goalkeepers. You would assume they would bring in a goalkeeper should he leave and head to the Saudi. But look, as long as they keep their players fit, I think City obviously the ones to beat. We know in terms of the odds against the bookmakers, they are 6-5 to win the Premier League. They're 1-10 to finish in the top four, and 1-25 to finish in the top six. So I look at Man City. Obviously, they are the ones to beat. I did say yesterday that I feel like Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal should be testing City. And I mean, look, I'll be honest. I'm not a big fan of Jeremy Doku. I'm not a big fan of Jack Grealish. So I think for me, if I was a team, I'd be looking to expose that side of the team. We know, as I said, we like, Pep likes Guardiola. He likes Cancelo to get further up the field, and I would be exposing that side of the pitch. If I'm playing as a right back, I'm playing as a right winger, I'll be exposing there because I feel like that is the weakness area for Man City. As I said, I'm not keen on Doku. He can take players on, but his final pass into the box isn't always the best. The same with Grealish. He tends to like to either cut in on his right foot, or he'll tend to play it backwards towards defense midfield. So I'm not really keen on him. Gvardiol played really well back in the last season, but I do feel they're missing something, City. And I do worry about, as I said, if Haaland gets injured, for me, it does seem, and we know Pep likes to rotate his teams as well, there does seem to be a bit of a lack of depth in there for me. So I do look at City. We're used to them having, like for like substitutions that they can bring on. I still think they've got that, but it's definitely shrunken down to almost the bare bones of what the squad can be for it to sustain through. So I look at the squad, I look at some of these players, and I do think, if they get injured, what next for Man City? I do think that. So one to watch out for. There's not really much we can talk about City in these previews, so there are ones to watch out for. I do think, obviously, they are the ones to beat. Is this Pep Guardiola's last season as well? It's yet to be seen. I think it will be. I think the charges, I think, we'll probably hear, end of December, start of January, the outcome of the hearing, if it does take place when it's supposed to. So, that will come in a crucial part of the season for Manchester City. And I look at the likes of like Rodri, Ruben Diaz, whatever happens, they're the sort of players I think you'd look to. Kevin De Bruyne as well, that will have to get this team over the line in certain games, make sure that they get the 3 points, because we know City, they don't necessarily always have the best starts to a season, but it's that back end of the season where they just flick a switch and they just go into autopilot, and they somehow manage to go on and win every single game. So, you can't rule them out at all. Obviously, they're favourites for a reason, but I do think they have to keep that squad injury free as much as possible. Obviously they're going to want to try and go for the Champions League again. Pep will want to, if Pep does leave, he's going to want to go out on a high. So I think, Man City, they've got a lot. I think riding on this season, because other teams, as we've talked about already throughout this period of the Premier League reviews, other teams are improving their squads, and there will be more competition. I don't think they'll have it all their own way this season. I think they might struggle. I am going to put them as champions, though. I have to say all that, because I do think, even a 60-70% fit Haaland is still capable of scoring, 20 plus goals a season. Kevin De Bruyne, if you keep him fit, he last season 10 assists. So, we know that Rodri likes to break things up in the middle of the pitch as well, for his tackles and his fouls. So I think they've got a spine, and obviously Edison, if they keep him. Carl Walker, again, another player that has that vast, experience playing at the top level under pressure, making things happen when it matters. So I look at the team, and they are the ones to beat. But the two players that I'm looking forward to seeing, the player to watch for me would have been Oscar Bob, but I think, him being out now for a long period of time, I've changed it now to Rico Lewis, who I think, again, I've watched over the last 2 or 3 seasons as he's broke through to the senior squad at City, and he looks good. He looks like a good right back. He can play centre back. He can drop into midfield and play as a defensive midfielder as well. And he's very versatile. So I think him playing in those roles would be a massive factor, especially in the cup games, Carabao Cup, FA Cup games. He tends to get a bit more game time there. But we might see a bit more of him, obviously, in the Premier League as well. Carl Walker might have to shift at times into that right centre back role that we know he can play, and maybe put Rico Lewis as your right back as as an option. But I look at Rico Lewis, and I think he's one of those players that he's just, definitely needs a bit more game time. I still think there's another club that he might move on to eventually if he doesn't get into the first team on a regular basis under Pep or the new manager if Pep does leave. But Rico Lewis, for me, very solid defender. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. And the star player, I think we can't really go for anyone else but for Rodri. I know a lot of people go for Haaland, but I think Rodri, for me, is, as I said, he's in his position, arguably the best player in the world in that position. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does for City, how he changes games for City. City, because sometimes they go 1-0 down. As I said, they flick a switch and they manage to get 3 points out of the game. So I think players like Rodri, De Bruyne, we need to see a lot more from Doku, a lot more from Doku this season, a lot more from Jack Grealish. There's been a lot of talk about him potentially leaving the club, but I think we need to see a lot more from certain players in that team. Even maybe Phil Foden. I know he had a brilliant back end to the season. Ended up getting the player of the season award. But I think he needs to maybe contribute a bit more with the goals, a bit more with the assist, and do it again as he did last season, and continue that form as he did. But I'm looking forward to Man City. I am going to put them as champions of the league. For me, City are the ones to beat. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and let me know what you think about the predictions for Man City. Where will they finish in the league? Who are you looking forward to watching for City? And let me know all of that stuff there. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video as well. And we'll be back soon with another video. Thank you very much for watching.